All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for another broadcast regarding the journey to loving yourself. My name is Melody McAllister, and I'm so thankful you are tuning in, whether you catch us live or the replay. I'm also here with my friends Barbara Gruener and Eddie Campos Jr. Last week, they had the courage to join me on the spot when I went live, and I hadn't put too much thought in how or the order that I was going to share, but we ended up talking about taking up space, projection, and changing our inner narrative. If you're joining us tonight, perhaps you're at the beginning of your journey or well on your way from where you began. I don't know that this journey is ever finished, but tonight we're going to talk more about feelings of worthiness, our own conditional love, and changing our inner narrative with one positive step to focus on. We're also going to share people, podcasts, or books that have inspired us, and I hope that you'll share what inspires you as well. Thank you for tuning in. Eddie, Barbara, how are you doing tonight? Can you share a little bit about yourself and name one thing that you love about yourself?
Hey, what's up, Melody? Thank you for having us. This is fun to be back again. I'm doing well. I'm having a good week. It's been an eventful day, beautiful day, actually. I got to play basketball with some youth that I work with. Also got to do some chalk art with them on the nearby court. So that's been a really cool day. And then I taught like some instructional aids to some Google stuff. So it was a good day. A really good day.
That's awesome. What is one thing you love about yourself?
One thing I love about myself, I think I can make people laugh. I think I have a knack for a well-timed joke in times of tension, and I think I provide levity to situation. Maybe I joke around too much, but I think we need more levity. So, I'm just going to say that.
I think you do that well.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like if I had asked you just a few years ago, like, what is one thing you love about yourself? Could you have done that?
I think I would have felt awkward at first, for sure. It sounds weird, but I definitely have been on this path, so I'm recognizing my assets and knowing who I am more. And you have to like love yourself before you can, love other people and bring love into other relationships. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about myself lately.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Like, just love. Okay. And Barbara, I want you to say something. Tell us about your background, something you love about yourself, and if that is something that might have been hard at one time for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us back, Melody. It's a gorgeous day here in Friendswood, Texas. I am a part-time Spanish teacher. I'm actually in my retirement. After 34 years, I left the schools to kind of be an entrepreneur, write a book, do some training and some speaking and some growing. And this year I've had the blessing to go back and work with 8th graders learning Spanish 1 to get ahead in their high school transcript and career. So pretty excited about that. Love spending the mornings with my 8th graders. Love spending the afternoons at my pool and gardening and learning to relax, right? That's a big thing for me because we grew up on a dairy farm. We did not relax. There was never, ever a time to relax. We didn't even really get Christmas, right? Because we didn't get holidays because the cows always had to be milked. Always. Like, it's like that job never goes away. So I am retraining myself to like be worthy of relaxation. And that's been hard, but it's been really good.
Wow. That's pretty phenomenal and something that not a lot of us understand. And I'm glad that you shared that. We're going to talk more about worthiness in just a little bit, but something that you made an illustration and we didn't get it to, we could put it up. It's going to be sideways. I'm going to put it up because you made this, right?
I was going to try to turn it. Yeah, I made that for, I was talking to the school counselors up in Wisconsin, for my home state, for National School Counseling Week, right? And so I just made a little blurb for their breakfast, and they were gonna get to listen to me for their breakfast. And I feel like we can't talk self-care without talking self-love.
For sure.
That one's really hard to read sideways. I try to turn a JPEG into a PDF, and my skills are like sometimes scary on the computer because I can do a little bit of not much. Okay,
it's beautiful. Did you make this?
I did.
That's incredible. The two things that I love about it, you can obviously see self-love going up and down. And then in the red, we simply cannot overflow where there is no flow. And Eddie kind of talked about that. But can you read what it says in the middle about the actual definition?
Yes. Okay. So I wrote it down. The definition of self-love is proper regard for and attention to one's own well-being and happiness. So there's nothing selfish in that. We're just basically saying we're giving it proper attention. It also adds that it's an appreciation for one's own self-worth. This is where your worthiness comes in, or virtue that stems from actions that nourish and support our psychological, physical, and spiritual growth. So again, nothing selfish. Then I threw in a quote from a professor of religion and philosophy over in Massachusetts at the Springfield College. His name is Mason Olds, and he said this: Often we are reluctant to promote self-love, mostly because we confuse it with selfishness. Since we are humans, we ought to have a healthy love for ourselves, because it is from that font that love flows out to others.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like I'm just going to say love all night, but I truly love that.
Yeah. And I think the thing I love about myself, to answer your question, is my joy. Like, I've always kind of had this natural joy, and it causes me to light up when I see people. I'm just joyful around people. So that's probably the thing I love the most.
I agree.
Is everything okay there? Because I think there was a scare.
My son just burst in here like he's playing Roblox with me, and I'm not even. Anyway, definitely, you are full of joy, and I'm so glad both of you are here. And we have the definition of self-love, and it's not necessarily. I don't know that we can't love others, but I think one of the crazy thing is that when we look how we do love others, and then when we look how we love ourselves, a lot of times it's not the same. It's just. Like, we wouldn't tell our friends how stupid they are, like, unless we wanted to end our friendship, right? We know that that's not, how we form relationships. And sometimes I don't know that we learn that relationship with yourself is probably the most important. And a lot of times it's always on the back burner, and all of us are in a service type career. So we're always serving, or if we're parents, or if we're, teacher, whatever, we're constantly serving others. So we do need to take some time and love and develop that love relationship with ourselves. And so I want to talk a little bit more, especially if anybody is joining us for the first time, about taking up space and feeling worthy. What keeps us from feeling worthy or being? And you talked about selfishness, like we're afraid to say that we like this about ourselves, or do something that we enjoy that builds us up, because we don't always feel like we're worthy. Or maybe, what do you think is maybe keeps us from being able to feel worthy or feel like we can take up space?
Eddie, do you want to tackle that one first?
Sure. I think it's a combination of things that you mentioned. I think, especially being educators, I think that we're natural caregivers. Mm-hmm. And so we're always making sure everyone else is okay and comfortable. And, that's just what we do. And there's never been a lot of rest. Since I started teaching, it was like, will you coach football? Will you be the help with the ASB freshman float? And it was like, your time is just piled on. So you're making sure you're in charge of all these little, young souls and stuff. And then, so there's, from the get-go, it's like you're pouring out. And then when you finally do get some time, like alone, like I felt like the pandemic and the shutdowns and stuff left everybody kind of sitting there like, whoa, what do I, and kind of, you had to look in the mirror a little more. I know I did. Mm-hmm. And it's like, do I like myself? Like, I'm sitting with myself alone, and is this a good thing? Or,
right.
Why does this not feel good? And it's like, maybe I haven't dealt with some things. So it was a good thing overall.
Right.
But then I think it's coupled with, like, I do a lot of meditation now, and I've learned that, like, the brain has a negativity bias, right? It's negative by nature. So unless it's programmed that way, but it's telling us stories that are not true. And if we believe those and we agree to those, then those are like detrimental to ourselves, and we shrink in spaces, so we have to like purposefully, intentionally retrain our brains to see the positive, to have gratitude, to take inventory and pause of what we've done in our lives and the accomplishments and the struggles we've been, you know what I mean? Like we forget about those things with all this hustle and bustle. And you're like, yeah, I've made it here. The fact that I'm 45 and, like alive still, and like done
sexy.
done some cool stuff, and so like, and help kids and help adults. And like, you should feel good about that stuff. So we don't use those pauses, right? Those pauses are used, and we let that negative voice, we let that volume increase, and we've got to learn to like, yeah, that's not true. It's kind of like you minimize that, and like, let's quiet you down, and let's lift at this other voice that, and it's some cultures, and a lot of us is like, it's a negative thing to boast or to brag about things you've done, but like, we can't shy away from that. That's a, that hypes us up. That's part of our positive self-talk and the, the affirmations and stuff like that. So,
yeah. And there's a difference from lording it over everybody and, bragging or just feeling proud.
right.
And I'm thinking there's a couple of things that came to my mind when you're talking, taking up space. For me, I felt like I took up too much space because a lot of my unworthiness comes with my self-image and what I look like and what I feel like. And I talked about this a little bit last week, but just in case anybody is just joining for the first time, I feel like compared, and that's another thing, comparison. That's a big reason why I don't feel worthy, or why I've struggled to feel worthy for most of my life, is because when I compare myself to other people, I'm always lacking. And it's usually goes back to my self-image, and my self-image has really been buried with my self-worth. So that's what I needed to make I have joked about it like, hey, if I didn't cuss and if I wasn't fat, I'd probably be too hard for this world to handle. but anyway, those are the things that, really kept me from being able to feel worthy and to know that I was valued in any space. What about you, Barbara?
I really hate this. We talked about it last week. I think a lot of it goes back to religion and the stories that we were told. Too much law and maybe not enough gospel, because we're in these vessels and we're taught that we're beautifully and wonderfully made. And yet, from little on, children are to be seen and not heard. That was such a crazy message, because it said your voice didn't matter. And yet the Bible was telling these same leaders in our community that Jesus loves the little children, and in whatever religion, that we don't use religion to make people feel unworthy, because, we serve a higher power that's gracious and merciful and not like so judgmental and punitive. So I'm afraid we can use religion.
Oh my goodness, Barbara. I think that you nailed it. I mean, I was in the church every time the doors were opened as a person throughout most of my life, but especially as a child. And you're right, the messages and the stories, but then the judgment and the punitive is almost my real perception of God or the higher power. It's just so punitive. If you mess up, your life is bad because you messed up or you sinned too much. It was that is another thing. I mean, deconstruction. I've worked on deconstructing myself and untangling that part of my faith. It's taken me a long time, years to do that. But you're right. That's totally part of it.
Yeah.
You're shaking your head, Eddie. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, and we talked a little bit about this last week. Like, I consider, I was raised in Catholic church myself too. And there, there's some interesting things that happen to the psyches of young people, when you're raised in some of these systems. And, I think it's like we talked about, that unconditional love versus the conditional love. And it's like, you're not gonna, you're not ready for the Lord, for the Creator, unless, you're pure or, and then like I read a lot of Toltec teachings from Don Miguel Ruiz family, and I love them because, they talk about with the 4 agreements, and one of them is the first one is be impeccable with your word, and like watching the way you use your words toward others, because they can be emotional poison, and emotional poison towards other people is actually emotional poison towards you. So like gossip and negative things, and like, because we are all that, you know, this same, like, you are me and I am you type of thing. But like, to really watch the emotional poison that you talk about yourself and those stories, because that affects you, and that harms you and causes suffering, which is unneeded, because it's all created up here, but it's not true. And then he mentions just about this idea of unconditional love. Like, we have suffering because he says, because we place conditional love on ourselves, and we say, you know, I'll be happy when I get to this weight, when I get that job, when I get that degree, when I'm in that relationship, when I'm married by this age, or whatever it is. And like, all of that stuff, it's a setup for failure. And I love that, because like, that's totally true. Like, you have to love the process. You have to look in the mirror every day and be like, I'm just going to love this, what this is right now, and love towards people and in my environment, and be thankful for things. And you know what I mean? Like, cause even when you achieve those things, that weight, that this and that, then what happens after that? Like, that's, you know, it's not setting you up for success. And that really has hit me the most, to be like, I'm not gonna worry about my weight and the way I look and stuff like that. I'm working towards something, and I'm just gonna love myself in the process now, you know. And it's I find that's a way healthier way of trying to live my life.
It is. When you said like emotional poison, I mean, oh my gosh, could you not get a better illustration than that? That is so true. And the poison that, and oftentimes when we are sitting and saturated with that poison in our minds, it does seep out of us and it pours. And no matter how we treat other people, it eventually gets to them too. I can't. And you're talking about conditional love. And I think, Barbara, that conditional love, even though it's not biblical, I think that because of the judgment and the punitive, like, that we have reaped through that like system, I think it's very part of our conditional mindset. And I'm just curious if you guys would be super brave. What are some of the conditions that you thought, if I just did this, my life would be like, you know, full or complete? And is full and complete even real?
Well, right. So I think Eddie kind of touched on perfectionism a little bit too, right? So, well, of course, we're not going to feel worthy if we've got any of that perfectionism going on, because the minute we let ourselves down, or if we put that perfectionism on other people, the minute they let you down, you know, there goes that worthiness for them and you, and more judgment and stuff. I think my kind of big, if only, always has to do with weight. It goes back to college when I was fighting with my mom. I had an eating disorder, and it was a really tough time. And you deal with food every day. I always thought, you know, if I was going to have an addiction, maybe it could be something I could quit, like gambling. And not that there's a better addiction, but you can't quit food. So you have to manage it.
Right.
And each and every day, like, I am 60, and it's, you know, it's managed, but it never goes away. So that also is tied to the perfectionism.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And how did you just like, how did you get help for your eating disorder? What?
My mom was an RN.
Oh.
And so they hosted an intervention over Christmas. That was fun. Wow. Yeah.
Thank goodness she did. Thank God.
But I needed it, right? So you don't think you need it. You know, you're 18 and you're rocking along, but you know, you're losing weight at not a healthy rate. And so then I was hospitalized and I got a handle on it, but it's been a lifetime of counseling, and that's not a bad thing. I think everyone should go to counseling. But, you know, sometimes if it's reactive, it's just harder than if you do it proactively.
Yeah, agreed. I agree. I mean, it's no secret. I've always thought if I could just be a normal size, then I would love myself. I would have a happy life. My life would be perfect. But that's just BS. I mean, it's never going to be perfect. Life is like one challenge after another. Sometimes the challenges are fast right after each other. And sometimes you have a little bit of space in between. But yeah. Eddie, what do you think? Like, has there ever been like something that you thought, if I could just...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same with the weight, thing, and
Mhm.
and if I can get to this weight, then that's what I'm gonna be cool. I mean, I even thought like past graduating from college, that was like
Right.
that's gonna be it. Like I really didn't look past graduating from college because like not many of my family graduated from college, so we didn't know what was after that. Now we have like doctorates and masters, and I don't have any of that stuff, but my younger cousins and siblings do. But like that was a big part of my conditional love. Once I get graduate from college, I'm set, and I didn't
Right.
realize so much of life is after that. I definitely think like even relationships. I'll be honest.
Mhm.
Like if I if I got the same love that I'm giving out in this
Mhm.
relationship, and that's what I need. And when you tie that love to relationships like that, like that's never a good thing. So
Right.
but yeah, it's definitely a learning, a process. I had a friend of mine, this is somewhat related. I was doing a keynote one time, and like keynotes are like frightening, like if because you're like, I gotta be on the stage and my face is gonna be how big on this screen, and I'm like, good God. Like, so I was doing this practice run in front of some friends. Two were on Zoom and one was here in my office, my buddy JJ. And then I did this practice run and I was going through it and I was stumbling over everything. And then my buddy JJ's just sitting down looking at the floor. And I'm like, why isn't he looking? Like, come on, dude. I'm like practicing here. And then afterwards, he goes, you don't sound like you. And he was like, what?
Mm.
You don't sound like you. He goes, just talk like you talk to me at the restaurant, at the bar. Like, he goes, that's when I hear your passion and people want to hear that. He goes, you don't sound like you. I don't know what you're worried about. And I was like, well, I know what I'm worried about, the way I look, the way my slides look, all that negative stuff. And he was like, don't worry about that. Just sound like you. And I was like, oh, dude, that's brilliant. So now anytime I practice for something, I never look at video.
Right.
And I just record my audio and I take a walk and I listen to myself. I was like, that doesn't sound like the way I say things. That, you know what I mean? And I'm so much happier and I go out with more confidence on the stage. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, and
Mhm.
yeah, that was a big aha to me. It's like, this is just a temporary body for us anyways.
Right.
Like, I
Right.
don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to take care of it the best I can, but
Yeah. And I gotta say, all three of us are pretty sexy. I mean, we are sexy people. But you know, for years on social media, I would never let anybody like I would, if somebody took a picture of me, I would have to see it and before I would allow them to put it on. And my husband just stopped taking pictures of me because I would just freak out because I'm like, no, I look so ugly. And I would get so angry at myself because I'm like, I spent so much time and I thought I looked good, but then I see this picture and I look like crap. And I don't know what happened, but one of my friends told me, she's like, you nitpick yourself so bad, but nobody else sees that. Like you are the only one that sees that. And then you go to, when people, especially people that you love, when they die young, and you think like all of the pictures and everything that you see, it really means something to you. And to think that my kids would never have that of me because like I was so caught up in my mind that I couldn't even allow for a photo to be shared, and that really bothered me. So that was a part of my journey a few years ago to start not worrying so much. I mean, and here's the thing: my family loves me, my friends love me. If they think that I'm fat, then it's okay. Like I can't really control how other people view me, but I know that I want to share my joy. And if I'm in a picture, like I don't think my friends would think that, but if they do, it's in their own mind. There's nothing I can do to stop that. I just want to be able to be present with my kids and not hate myself for it. And again, that goes back to the projection of me. If I hate myself for how I look, then I'm showing my kids by example that this is normal. And I don't want it to be normal for them as either. So.
Yeah, Melody, one time someone said, I wish you could see yourself the way I see you. And to me, that was so powerful. And I remember just sobbing when they left because I thought, okay, what are they seeing that I am not allowing myself to see? And it wasn't makeup, like it wasn't like fix yourself up related because I've never really done makeup. So I haven't. My dad just didn't let me, like when I was little. So I just didn't. I saved a lot of money. But I think she was talking about on the inside, like right or like your talents and your gifts.
Yeah.
back to the conversation we had last March, which we talked about briefly last week, where you wanted us on a magazine cover, like go on to Canva and learn a new tool and make a magazine cover with your picture. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you mean like put yourself on a magazine cover? And that felt so uncomfortable.
Right. Right. And this kind of naturally segues into changing our self narrative. And we talked a little bit about this as well. Like, just like, how do you flip that script? It feels so silly. I think I remember you saying something about this last week, Eddie, about how at first it feels so silly to like talk to yourself in a kind way. And because it's a 180 from how we generally, and I don't know that anybody taught us when we were younger to affirm ourselves.
No.
I don't think that was a thing. I know it is now. I know it's necessary now. We just put a lesson out with, the company that I work with. We just put a lesson out about self-affirmation, but that was not anything that like I remember growing up. So, what helped you to change your self-narrative? Anybody can go, and I can talk. I can keep talking, but I feel like I talk too much.
I think that affirmation, like, I wish I was taught that earlier. I totally agree with that. Like, I've been using those lately, and my God, like, those have power, because just that phrase, I am ... like, and I see a therapist. We normalize talking about therapy all the time.
Yeah.
I talked to her yesterday, and it was awesome. But she had me start to put down, affirmations. I am something that or what do you want? And then what is something truthful, to balance those. And that really helped me with, like, I'm healthy, and I'm a mindful eater or something like that. And what's a truth thing is, like, I enjoy the energy that I get when I eat a healthy meal and a small portion, and like, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So tying the affirmation with the truth, and then just that, like, saying those things and then writing them down every day and reminding myself, like, it's just good. Hey, you care about these things. These are things you value. These are true. And then before like, they start becoming true. Like, it's so crazy to the point that I went to this museum exhibit, and they had this artist, Octavia Butler. I'm not sure if you know who Octavia Butler is, but she wrote Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. And they had a picture of her affirmations, and they were so specific. And I was like, oh my God, my affirmations are not specific enough. She was like, I'm going to be like on the best times, the New York bestseller. She was like,
right?
my Pasadena home is going to be like da, 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 da. And I was like, oh my God, and I was showing my friends, and they were like, yeah, I need to dial in my affirmations. Like, my affirmation game is not that strong. So I'm like, in the next 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm dialing it in. I'm cranking it up, telling the universe exactly what I want. And
I love that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, yes.
Like, just tell it, speak it, and it's crazy. Like, someone in his book I read, it says the universe is kind to grand endeavors. The universe wants these things. There's enough to go around for everybody, and it's like, just put it out there. And
I love that. Oh my God, I'm going to do that for sure. And speak it. And I know it is something, and we say that you are who you keep company with. And you talked about the pandemic. Well, if you're by yourself, if you're keeping company with yourself and all your thoughts are negative, you are going to think negative about yourself. You really do have to start talking nice to yourself. And I've always loved talking to people, being on a broadcast. I've been a ham. I used to hate that about myself. I hated being a ham. But here's the thing. Like, that is just who I am. I don't know why I feel like anything I say is important. I mean, it's kind of silly when you think about it. And I used to talk in front of a mirror. Like, I had my own talk show when I was a teenager, not even when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. And so it's funny how this stuff, it all comes out, later on in life. But, why not say, I would love to keynote, Eddie. I think it's great. I think both you and Barbara both have. And to me, I think that's amazing, and that is something that I am going to start talking to myself about. Yeah.
Yeah. Dial it in, I mean, it's crazy. Like, I've felt the power in it. Like, I start saying something, and then the next day something will happen. I was like, dude, I was just talking about that. Like,
yeah,
I just started telling myself that, and that's powerful. Like, so why not?
Right. And
I
I
mean,
stopped telling myself I was going to be skinny. I started saying I'm going to be healthy. And I
yeah.
don't even feel like being skinny to me anymore is anything I don't even care about. I want to be a thick woman that I am, but just healthy. That's all I care
Mhm.
about. Like, I don't want to be anybody that I'm not. Like, it's more important for me to be true to myself. And that's one of the reasons why I love talking about changing your self narrative. And it takes a long time.
And
But
thick is a beautiful thing.
yeah.
Like thick is beautiful. So I just bought it's funny, I just bought a shirt today. It said gordito pero guapo. And it was like that's
Oh,
chubby but handsome. I was like, dude, I'm gonna rock that.
Yes.
I'm gonna rock that gordito pero guapo shirt right there. And we're like, yep. And I'm gonna see people nodding, like, yep, you damn right.
That's right. That's right. What are you thinking, Barbara?
well, I'm thinking that mine started when I discovered the work of Byron Katie.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about, she calls it the work, and it's 4 questions. And it's basically, is this thought true? And can you be 100% that thought is true?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you know that thought is true? And then turn that thought around. So basically, you're just turning it around. So the thought, oh, I'm so stupid, or whatever your thought is that true? Well, then you have to well, okay, probably not 100%, like how do you know that's not true? And you're gathering information. It's a lot what, like Eddie said, you're talking to yourself, right? You're talking it through. No, that's not true. I'm just feeling stupid right now. So then what is the turnaround thought? And so then the turnaround thought is usually like the opposite, like I am not stupid. I'm just struggling right now, or whatever. And when I discovered her work, I don't know, maybe a dozen years ago, I started better, not great yet, but better, turning those thoughts around and saying, that's not serving me to talk so negatively to myself, even if I'm feeling, nervous or anxious or whatever.
Right. And if our friends were saying this about themselves and we would tell them, you need to stop saying this about yourself. It's not true. And so I think flipping that onto yourself actually is a good way as well, because you wouldn't let your friends talk about themselves that way. And sometimes we have to be our best friend. We have to say what we would say to our best friend. Really, we're closer to ourselves than best friends. So yeah, like it works. Eddie, is everything okay?
It was good. I just saw there was a couple of police cars pulling up out in front of my outside, and I was like, it's not my house that they're looking for, so that's a good thing.
Okay, all right then. Okay.
They want to know where you got that gordo pero guapo shirt.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're doing some investigating of their own, and I seem to be safe for now.
You're just so you're just on fire. Now they got to investigate who's
like,
making this neighborhood so hot.
There's this podcast going on right now, and they're talking about changing the narrative, and we can't be.
Yes, exactly. Well, let's talk about some favorite resources. You guys have already dropped some names. Can we drop some links? And I'm so inspired by this conversation. I like this conversation better than the last 2 I've had, because I feel like we've organized it well and we've gotten a good starting point. Like if we wanted to do this again, we could continue off, maybe even go deep into one aspect. So I love this. I'm definitely going to write about it. I am so inspired, and I want to share these resources out as well. So, okay. So Byron Katie.
Yeah, she's the one who does the work, and that's the 4 questions. She has a couple of books, but the titles of the books aren't coming to me right now. But
Okay.
Byron Katie, you can search her. And then I put in self-compassion too, self-compassion.org. Kristen Neff does a lot of self-compassion and gentle self-talk, like kind, gentle.
Okay, great. Wonderful. And Eddie, you dropped some. I will get those.
Yeah, I dropped a one tab link. I don't know if this goes
Okay.
but it basically has a couple of resources. Anything by the Don Miguel Reese family, I think is like there's just really good stuff. And then The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron is a book that I really helped me out. It's and the 10% Happier app. It's a meditation app. The Artist Way is, I have to say, I love that it's more about creativity, but it's like a recovering creativity, which I think leads to a lot of joy, and then your happiness and self-worth. But what I like about it, it talks about you journal every day. It's the two main things, and then you set an artist date with yourself every week, 2 hours a week for yourself to be creative. And I'm like, I think that's like self-love in itself. You're giving an act of love, of giving the gift of creativity, of being like childlike, to paint, to read, to hike, to cook, and like that fills the bucket. So I've been doing that for like a long time, and sometimes it was meal prep, sometimes it's a hike, sometimes it's reading, journaling, sometimes it's drawing, and like you have to kind of take yourself on a date every once in a while and be like, hey, what do you get to know yourself? What did I like to do? I used to like to play basketball.
Hot stuff. Where are we going tonight?
Yeah,
I mean, just look in the mirror and say, where would you like to go? Like,
and I mean, and even if you're in a relationship, I know like married couples. I talk to my sisters, and they're like, oh yeah, we could both do that, and use some like solo time just to refill, and then come back together stronger. So it's like, hey, you gotta give yourself, treat your inner child. It says like your artist child, and take care of that child, because you have to cultivate it. So I kind of like that. I think that's helped me out.
I love it. I love that. And you're right. I mean, even my husband and I know that we have to have time by ourselves, like, and we're okay with that. It doesn't mean anything ugly. It means that, we have to do what I can take myself out anywhere. I'm comfortable going to a movie, to a dinner, doing something that I love. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And Barbara, yes, Wholehearted School Counseling. Tell us about this.
Yes. So her name is Anita, and she is so wildly creative, and she has a teachers page. And I get a lot of my images from Anita. She does a lot of freebie downloads, but she also makes quality resources designed for school counselors, but it's all just like really good. An image that I used for Wellness Wednesday today is basically automatic negative self-talk, and then what are thoughts, and then what are some things we can say to challenge those. And so to say, each and every one of us thinks, oh, you're a bad kid, or you did a bad job, or the world's going to end, or that's just terrible, or what are those automatic self thoughts, negative talk, and then what are some things that we can say to combat that natural response.
Yeah, I love that. And I also follow Wholehearted School Counseling. Somebody that inspires me is, I tried to say her name last week and I totally butchered it, but Judith Gayton. And it's funny because I found her on Facebook. I was following her on Instagram, and I listened to one of her podcasts, and she has an airplane story almost exactly like mine. And if I hadn't told mine before I listened to hers, I think anybody would think I was, copying off her. But here's the thing. There's so many of us that have had those terrible experiences. I cried because I felt so validated and seen that I'm not crazy. Like, she talked about shrinking herself, the whole 9 yards. It was crazy. But she is so cool. The reason I follow her is because she doesn't have like those slim body types. So whenever you look on a catalog and you want to get something fashionable, but it's only on people that don't look anything like you, and there's nothing wrong with being slim, don't get me wrong. But when I want to look at clothes that would look good on my body type, she is somebody that knows how to style a woman just so well. Like, she inspires me, and she's not afraid to take up space. She's not afraid to just be her true self. And she's so joyful. It really inspires me. And another person, this is somebody you have to, she cusses, Corinne Crabtree. She's the fit and fat person. She's lost over 100 pounds, kept it off for many years. And she takes other people through this weight loss journey. She cusses a lot. And, I have a potty mouth, so I love her realness, her real talk. But she inspires me because she constantly talks about how there's no weight loss diet program that's going to help you keep weight off. Like, it has to be a lifestyle change. And she talks about the journey of loving yourself as well through all of it. And so she's another person that really inspires me. So I want to thank you both for being here tonight. Like, this was a great conversation. And, if you are watching the replay, I would love to hear your thoughts about this as well. And I always like to ask my guests, what is one thing that you would like to say that maybe you didn't get the chance to say, or maybe something else that you've learned along this journey that you want to share that you feel is really important? I want to give you the opportunity to share that before we say goodbye.
I like that someone mentioned that, maybe it was you, Melanie, that it doesn't happen overnight. Like, I like to put out there that I am 60 years old now, and I am still working on all the stuff, all the things, and it doesn't happen overnight. So the journey, not a sprint, or the marathon, not a, just that you continue to give yourself that grace and work toward the self-love, because once you have it for yourself, you can give it so much more abundantly and wholeheartedly to the people in your care. I think
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
For me, I think it's mindfulness is huge, to pause ourselves so often. And then I don't know what book I read it in, but it was like to ask yourself these questions. Like, at this point, like, what do I need right now? Like, ask yourself that question every once in a while. Do I need some solitude? Do I need some connection? Do I need some creative time? Do I need a meal? Do I need a sweat? Like, do I need to release some anger? And like, to constantly check in on ourselves. That's something I'm trying to do. Like, because it changes throughout the day. I mean, it can change like that, and you can change your mood. Something can happen. Like, what do I need right now to, I don't know. That's been a big one for me. And just check in on ourselves like we would a loved one, like you mentioned earlier. Treat ourselves like we would the person that we love most in this world, and think about like a young nephew or sister or something like that. So that's what I try and do.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I just want to say, it starts with forgiveness. I think that a lot of things that we grew up with, whatever, if it was our religion, if it was our parents, I think that we can all understand that they did the very best they could, that people get it wrong. There comes a time when we just have to take ownership of the journey and forgive what we can't change. If it's wasted time and we feel like it took too long, that is something I've struggled with, thinking, why did it take me 39 effing years to want to change my life? Like, I wasted so many years. And I think that it just starts with forgiveness for the things that you don't like about yourself, or the things that you've done to yourself and harm, bad decisions you've made, and trying to find that love, and not knowing better, and do it. It's just, there's so much forgiveness wrapped up in this whole entire journey. So I think it really does. And then it starts, forgiving others too, knowing that you can't go back and change what others said, what others did, and understanding that they probably did what they could with what they had. And it may have not been the best, but it just is. And I think so many times we wish that people would just come. I mean, I've had these images of the people that have hurt me most, like begging for my forgiveness. And, that used to be like a fantasy that replayed in my mind. When I realized that things like that rarely ever happen, probably wouldn't happen in my life. I just had to accept it and move on, because there's so much life ahead of us that we don't want to waste. And so that's just what I want to say and share. You two don't go anywhere. Everybody, we will see you again. I hope that Barbara and Eddie, I hope you'll join me again. But thank you so much for listening, and take care.